Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Women in Math and STEM, where our mission is to reach out to as many professionals, aspiring professionals, students, whatever you name it. We try to reach out to them, who essentially support the initiative of bringing more women and young girls into the STEM field. So, with that being said, as always, feel free to open up the description or transcript to better follow along, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. Hello, and thank you so much for coming to this call today and talking with me. Just to sort of start off, do you mind introducing yourself as well as sort of walking us through your journey to get you where you are today?
Yeah, definitely. Hi, my name is Abhi Suresh. I just am a recent graduate of Bryn Mawr College, where I studied math, and education. I think I left high school and I was like, oh, like I really like math, like I want to see what it looks like at a higher level. And so that kind of led me to study math at Bryn Mawr. I think my first year there, I was like I don't know if I'm gonna stick with this. Like maybe I want to do something else. But the department was just so great and so supportive on so many fronts that I was like, this is a place where I can like learn and grow and like I love that we do a lot of math and collaboration, and there's like a lot of encouragement to work with your peers, like when you do math. Um, and I think like having that support like bolstered me to go out and like figure out what it is I exactly wanted to do with my math degree. I like didn't necessarily think I would end up in finance in some respects. Like I was like, it's something I'm interested in, but like I want to take my time and see like if that's for me, which is very much opposite of how like recruiting goes in the finance industry. Like you recruit year and a half out for your junior year internship. Um, and honestly, even if you wanted to go for a sophomore internship, so like when you're a freshman and you have not taken any sort of math or finance classes that really relate to that. Um, and so I did a program called Girls Who Invest. And so we were given like 4 weeks of training on like investment management and lots of financial topics from like valuation to modeling to Excel. um, we spent like I think like over like 200 hours in a classroom across like 4 weeks, like just like learning about all different types of asset classes and the different strategies used and all the different kind of financial mathematical like thought processes that are like utilized in investment management, which is really helpful. And then they like place you into an internship, and so I was placed into a hedge fund, which I really liked. I think like it was both a really good culture fit as well as like a really good um place to learn. Like they were really willing to understand that like we had just been trained, but like that looks different when you're actually on the job and how that like changes. And so um I was there and had a really great time. And then I like decided like, oh, I like really want to do finance. Like I really like this industry. Like they're really great people and everyone is like super smart and like cares about what they're doing. And like everyone um is really like that I've met at least has been really genuine about wanting to learn, grow, like help support you and like give you the tools that you need to succeed. So yeah, that was really long.
No, it was good. I think you mentioned that you studied math and education. I was just wondering how
Mhm,
that background sort of is advantageous to you when you are like entering finance like right now.
mhm. I think like math wise, like helpful for me. Um, like we recently just had training like for my analyst program, and so like helpful for me, like I can understand like I should say I have understanding of like the mathematical processes. So like when I was in college, I took actuarial mathematics with one of my favorite professors, and like sitting down and like doing the perpetuity and the annuity, like in the moment I was like, wow, like this is really long and like this is not fun. Like it was just sometimes it could be a little confusing too, but then like coming back like and having this job, I'm like, oh, like I can understand like how cash flows work and like how if you're like trying to model them out and you want to like go backwards, like you can do the math for that. And obviously like we didn't do the math necessarily in my training program, but like I already knew what it looked like. So I didn't need to be like, I wonder how like they're getting here from there. And so that has been really helpful. I think also just having a math degree, like you have to think really analytically and like you're looking at graphs and charts and all the things like on the job for me. And I'm like, okay, like what does this mean? Like, can this be better? Like, what does this mean in the context of the specific investment that we're making or whatever company we might be dealing with? Um, and I think like that lens is like so important. And I think educate like I also studied education, which I like kind of stumbled into. I didn't really mean to pick that up per se. Like I was like, oh, like I'll take an education class, like I'll see how it is. And like I just really love like I specifically studied in like the higher education context. And so like that is specifically like colleges and your more like your secondary education. And like I um as like a woman of color and like my parents like never got degrees here in America, and so like it's different for me to like navigate the collegiate system. And like I did a lot of like reading and research about that, and like very interesting to me to like see how pedagogy, which is like how you learn, pedagogy is like the how, if like teaching is the why, I would say. um and how like pedagogy plays into that. And like I think studying education has helped a lot with my soft skills. Like I pick up on things like that, like, if someone's not feeling that great or if they're feeling frustrated by something or, whatever it may be in terms of like empathy and understanding, like it has played a lot to that as well. And so like I think I'm able to like step into rooms and like garner more of the vibe before like I speak up or before I decide to contribute, which I think has been really helpful considering that sometimes, you can step into tense spaces or people might have a lot of things on their plate. So they might be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And so being like accommodating from your end too has been like really helpful. And it helps you, I think, like when you're managing your first, like in your first role and you have to like manage up and across. So like in terms of like your manager and like their manager and like how that looks and like giving yourself the support, but also making sure that you're supported. Like it's a kind of a two-way street, and like understanding how that works has like really helped like from the empathy and understanding of my that my education degree brought me.
Makes sense. I think you mentioned that you had to like sort of navigate the collegiate system on your own without like your parents' help. I was just wondering what sort of other challenges you've encountered and were able to overcome sort of throughout your life.
Um, yeah, throughout my life. Okay. I think there's a wide many. I think when I was young, I lost a really close family member, and that kind of changed the trajectory of my life for me. And like, I think it really showcased to me like tenacity and how I can work through very challenging situations with lots of different people and moving parts. I think it also just made me like a kinder person. Like, you never know what someone is going through, and like someone could be laughing on the outside and having a horrible time on the inside. Like you genuinely don't know. And like to treat people with like kindness and respect is really so important. And I think I've carried that with me like as I've, grown up throughout high school and now I finished college and like in my first job, like how that like has progressed in terms of like my life overall. Um, I think collegiate wise, like there are like in I won't lie and say that like having a math degree is like easy. Like it was a lot of work. And it was definitely like I had dinner with one of my math friends who's finishing up her degree this year, one of my besties. And she was like, we were talking about how like it is difficult to get a math degree because the amount of like understanding and work that goes into it, like you may not always get it. Like not everyone is a mathematical genius, and that's okay. Like that's completely fine. But like even if you don't get it, like what's your approach to like understanding or coming back to it or giving yourself like the time and grace to like fully understand the concept, problem, piece set, whatever it is, like so that you can properly demonstrate understanding like on an exam, or if you're taking a class that builds on the previous one, like you need to know what went on in the first class to like do well in the second one, especially in those like continued classes. So like I think like it's definitely like I think people who have engineering degrees or something similar that's like a lot of mathematical and science heavy, which I know a lot of my friends have done when they went to school with me and stuff. So it's like there's a lot of content to be covered sometimes, and like this sometimes the steps aren't always given. And so figuring out that process is like really important. I think it really makes you break down what you're understanding and like, oh, like I don't get how you went from step 2 to 3 or like 10 to 12, like whatever it is. And so, and in math, like I think like there are different avenues. So there's like pure math, which is like more abstract, so like abstract algebra and like more proof writing is how I would describe it, and like less um analytical slash like applied math, which is like, 2 + 2 = 4, like here's my equation and like this is what it means. Like that is like more applied, and like you can run models and like demonstrate specific characteristics across like, various industries like biology, chemistry, like any, like honestly it applies to a lot of life, and it can be used like into many things, but like they're both like vastly different, and they require like similar but different forms of thinking, which like makes you really wonder like it's honestly a trial and error process. Like when you like have a math, like if you're deciding to do a math degree, or if that's something you want to do, like you'll be like, oh, like take some of the pure math classes and take some of the applied math classes, and you'll be like, oh, like I don't like this or I do like this, and like you'll figure out like what is the best way to do it. Um but yeah, like going back to the question, got a little off track there. Going back to the question, just like I think like collegiate wise, like it is difficult to have, honestly, like not just a math degree, but like I feel like sometimes even harder when you have a math degree. Um, Going to college can be really difficult, and you have no idea what a person might be balancing family wise, externally, like if they're in like a gajillion activities, like I was, like there's so many things that could be on people's plates, and like it's really, I think, important to just lead with kindness and be respectful, but also like you are capable of doing it. And like I think I've been to conferences that like hearing the validation of like you're supposed to be in the room and like you're supposed to be there is like so important. I think especially like for young women, like it was one of the honestly greatest things I've ever heard. Like growing up and like coming to college and like validating that your experience is valid and the journey that you're taking is valid, and the things that you will do are going to be important. And like even though it might not feel like that sometimes when you're really like in the weeds of it all and like not able to see the forest, but you're like on the tree. So yeah, I think there's a lot of like takeaways and like overcomings from challenges.
Sort of on the same note, I was just curious if you had any pieces of advice, recommendations, suggestions, honestly anything for students, but particularly minority students who are interested in pursuing a math degree in the future.
Hmm. I think for minority students, I think also like where like no matter where you're from, what your background is, like I said earlier, like you were meant to be in higher education, can be elitist, more PWI spaces, like you're supposed to be there. Like let's like that you are a part of those spaces, and you will contribute to them if that's where you decide to go to school, and if that's where you decide to make decisions. Um, and I think it should be so important, one, to ask questions. Like the worst answer you will hear to a question is no, and it's not the end of the world. Like it's gonna be okay. Like I always tell myself that, like, oh, like I don't know if I should ask this, but like the worst question you're gonna hear is like no, or that's not right. Like so it's gonna be okay. And if it's not right, that means you're learning. Like those are important things. And I think like make sure that you stay curious and you're doing a lot of learning. Like I think like graduating for me, like I am going through like the phase of like missing school, which is like so weird for me. And like not like going to class, and like you don't realize, like especially in college, like you will have so much free time, like make use of it, do fun things, but also like do self-care and take care of your mental and your physical. Those are really important. Those are the things that allow you to do the things that you do every day. Like there is no you without making sure that you're healthy in all aspects. Um, but you have so much time, and like you don't realize it until you get a job, and it like changes in different ways, because it's like yes, I like my job, but like it's not the same amount of like, oh, I can like I have 2 hours of nothing in between my classes. Like there's no such thing. Like, oh, I can do my homework in between my meeting. Like that's doesn't work like that. Um, and so like I think it's like really important. Like make, if you have free time, like do fun, like prioritize it, do fun things. Like make sure you're like getting a good collegiate experience, or even if you're in high school, like make sure you're doing other things. Like make sure you're having friends over, social life, whatever it may be. I think those are really important. I think in terms of like studying math, like I think it's really important to remember to keep at it. Like sometimes math won't make sense, and that's okay. Like it's gonna be like, I have no idea what that means, and I don't understand. And I need to go to my professor or I need to go to my teacher and be like, hey, can you explain this step by step? That's okay. It's okay also in math to think and not like, okay, I get it, but I want more practice. Those are completely okay. And honestly, they're really important to building the foundation for you to use the math later on in whatever context it may build into. Um, I would like say that sometimes, like, and I have gone through this, like, it's like 10 p.m. and you're like, oh my God, I need to do math. And your brain is like completely not working. That's okay. Like, I think one of my favorite professors, Leslie Chang, if you want to look her up, she would always tell me to not do math when I was tired, which was probably the best piece of advice I got, just because like you're not thinking the same and you might let go of some steps or forget some processes like to do the problem. And that was the best advice I got because I would tell her like, I'm gonna try to do it right now, and it would be like 8 p.m. and I'd be like, I don't know if it's gonna go. And but it's okay because I'll come back tomorrow. And we would have like a good rapport about like, okay, like if you're tired, like it's not worth trying to force yourself to do something that you think you're gonna get a good answer to when like you might be missing some things. Um, I think otherwise, like if you're studying math or you decide to study math, like you have so many options. Like math is so applicable to so many things. And like I part of like my own like journey of like figuring that out was like I felt really like overwhelmed when I was a freshman and sophomore in college because I was like, I don't know. Like, there's so many options to do with my degree. Like, there's so many different things math applies to. You could have a job that's like just math, or you could be a professor, or you could have a job that incorporates math on a higher level. Like, if you wanted to be like an engineer or whatever. And so, like, there are so many like different options. And like, even in the next like 4 years, like, there will be new options. There are always going to be new jobs, especially I think for like math. It's like math, technology, and engineering and science. Like I think there's always going to be jobs there. Um, and like know that what you study, sometimes it will change and it might not be what you expected it to be. And you might be like for me, like I didn't expect to have education as my double major. Like it just happened and like that's okay. Like you can have those classes that complement your math degree and that know that like you will have so many options. So like do some research and figure out like what you're interested in mathematically and how that might translate to the workforce, like a specific job, specific industries, and like if you have other interests too, you can loop those in and see if like that can be a job for you in the future. But like there are going to be new jobs in like 5 years that like didn't exist now, and so having like those new options that you've never even considered are also really important. Like you're going to expand like all the things you can pick from. So do your research and like be diligent and like figuring out what it is you want. And I think internships and like externships, talking to people is a great way to do that. Like you can take away different people's experiences and aspects and things that they liked or didn't like, and then be able to, use that to form your own journey in whatever way, whether with being things that you like, don't like, aspects that might be more intense or not. And then you can figure out, this is my end goal or this is what I want to do with if I decide to study math. Yeah.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. It was absolutely phenomenal talking to you.
Thank you. I'm really glad. Like, if anyone wants to reach out, like, please feel free. I can like leave my email with you too whenever you post this.